Today, I will be reviewing Mindfully Navigating CIRS Recovery, an evaluation of mindfulness meditation intervention, which is for the 6-week course that I ran in the fall of 2023. So my objectives for this webinar today are for you to understand the origin of using mindfulness meditation as a support for CIRS patients, to understand the thought process and intentions for data collection, to review the pilot study results, and to answer questions. I am very interested in exploring how we, as a community, can reduce the mental, emotional, and spiritual suffering for patients going through the Shoemaker protocol. Can we evaluate common nervous system and limbic system supports specifically for CIRS patients? We know that CIRS patients are unique in some ways, and not every method may work for every person. Which ones actually work for CIRS patients and at what time in the protocol? What is the right length of time to try an intervention, and what methods work for which types of people? A little bit about me. My name is Melanie Joy Pensack, and I am a certified speech and language pathologist of 20 years, a certified mindfulness teacher, trauma sensitive. I'm a grief educator and peer-to-peer support for CIRS patients. I am a Shoemaker Proficiency Partner diplomat, founder of Meditation for CIRS, hostess of the Heart of CIRS podcast, and a CIRS survivor spiraling between step 3 and step 12 of the protocol. I want to explain more about my personal and professional background and timeline so that you can see how the idea of using this course came to be. In 2015, I began studying mindfulness meditation as my primary practice, teaching classes in groups. In 2019, I became certified as a mindfulness teacher. In 2020, I was nomadic and I was living in California outside of the Sacramento area. During that time, I was exposed to fires in California. I was living in a moldy building that I wasn't aware of was moldy at the time, and also was living on this organic farm right next to a chicken coop. I point this all out because I did not have full-blown CIRS at that time, but I do think that there's some connection to dysregulation in my nervous system, which impacts genes because of the primal fear that came up due to those fires in Northern California. In 2021, I had my CIRS priming event, second COVID vaccine, Moderna. I was unknowingly living in a water damaged building at the time of vaccination. Within a few months, June, July, I had 4 ER visits, a 2-night hospitalization, and yet no diagnosis from the physicians. I was in this period of time where I was flipping in between being functional and non-functional, while my body seemed to be trying to figure out what to do with all the immune dysregulation. During a good period, I decided to travel to France, hear my doctor's blessings. I was told nothing was wrong, so go relieve some stress. So I went in August and September in 2021 to Bordeaux and southern France and ended up in water damaged buildings there, dangerously low blood pressure, and was getting my affairs in order in case of death. My 2-week trip to rest and relax turned into 6 weeks, and I left France in a wheelchair. At this time, I still did not know what CIRS was, and I came home and was seeking answers and was bedbound then from October 2021 and did not get my diagnosis until April of 2022. Now, during this time when CIRS was very fresh and new and full blown, it was very difficult to meditate. I was able to do some mindful moments, but staying present for a formal long meditation was more challenging. In April of 2022, I got my diagnosis of CIRS through Genie and my blood labs. I showed immunoreactivity to endotoxins and actinos, not mold, even though I was living in a water damaged building. In fall of 2022, I began meditating again formally when I started passing my BCS test. There seemed to be this ability to sit and practice after I reduced the inflammation to a level that was more tolerable. In June of 2023, I started meditation for CIRS formally, and I began teaching a drop-in meditation class for CIRS patients once weekly. In March of 2024, I was still hitting a plateau on the Shoemaker protocol, and through my own personal investigation, was able to eventually get a diagnosis of multiple tick-borne co-infections. IGeneX testing showed active anaplasmosis, tick-borne relapsing fever, weak signs of Bartonella, and exposure to Lyme and rickettsiosis. I began doing tick-borne co-infection treatment along with the Shoemaker protocol. In 2024, August, I launched the online mindfulness community for CIRS patients in the practice portal. And in August, I also got an official Bartonella diagnosis. After my treatment had been going on for about 6 months, I was able to get a positive IGeneX fish test. In 2024 September, I did the fall research study, Mindfully Navigating CIRS Recovery, a 6-week meditation course, which we'll be reviewing more information on the results of that today. And in October, I walked for the first time a mile in a park in 3 years. It was a huge achievement. And I look forward to what 2025 will bring. How did I emotionally, mentally, and spiritually get through the extreme and sudden transition from being a fully functional, globetrotting entrepreneur to surviving a near experience with death and then living bedbound with mysterious medical issues? Mindfulness meditation practice prepared me to remain as mentally and emotionally steady as I could be during very difficult and very uncertain times. The uncertainty of not knowing what was going on with my body, this quick and sudden change in my physical abilities, and the rapid decline in my health was something that required a lot of balance and mental fortitude to be able to navigate and get through. I have some observations from that time. You've probably already picked up on the fact that I shared it became difficult to practice formal meditation for a period of time. August of 2021, when I was in France, to fall of 2022, around the time when I passed my BCS and was treating Marcons, that time was much more difficult to do longer meditations. I was in that point where we often hear people say the point of no return, when CIRS fully turned on. I was still in water damaged buildings, and it took getting into clean housing, being on binders, passing the BCS test, treating Marcons, and then when the inflammation went down, I was able to practice again. I was really grateful for that because I had a lot to work on in terms of what I had gone through traumatically during the last year. Prior to that time, I would do what I would call nervous system band-aids, where they would help calm my nervous system for a small period of time, but they didn't really linger and last. Alternate nasal breathing, weighted blanket, music for co-regulation, humming, these things seem to help regulate my vagus nerve and nervous system for short periods as needed. My meditation training really became vital when I was able to start practicing again because I needed to get re-embodied and practice grounding. It helped me to be with the unpleasant situations in CIRS recovery. It helped me to notice the pleasant moments that came up. It helped me to work with my thoughts, like the fears that I was experiencing, and all of the emotions, sadness, anger, grief from the traumatic events I lived through. Meditation was my primary tool for helping me to heal mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Somatic trauma work, I did that as needed. Many people commented how sharp I seemed mentally, considering the serious physical impact of what I lived through. While I had word finding issues, slower processing, and cognitive fatigue earlier on, I believe that my meditation practice and regular brain games supported neuroplasticity to be able to help me to re-engage and complete a large number of cognitive tasks. Let's talk a little bit about mindfulness and mindfulness-based stress reduction. In the 1970s, teachers like Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg, Joseph Goldstein, they brought teachings from India to the US in the American Vipassana movement directly from Buddhist philosophy and traditions. In 1979, American John Kabat-Zinn introduced mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, to University of Massachusetts Medical Center for chronic pain and stress disorders. Now, the courses that he was teaching and sharing with people were 6 to 8 weeks, 2 hours in length. That's a really long time for someone, especially with CIRS, to be in a class. You'll see later that I decided to adapt the time in class. My mindfulness training that I learned was very similar, where I was teaching a 6-week course for 2 hours a week. Now, when you would maybe casually look up mindfulness and meditation on Google Scholar in terms of research, mindfulness has 1.3 million hits, mindfulness meditation, 379,000, mindfulness meditation chronic, 120,000, because it has been studied to work with a variety of chronic pain and stress disorders and illnesses. I want to summarize just some of the research around mindfulness effects on the limbic system and the nervous system and the body that would relate more specifically to CIRS. It helps to regulate the nervous system out of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, so switching the body into a parasympathetic calming nervous system state. It helps to calm an overactive amygdala, decreasing its size so people can be in rest and digest and feel less anxious. It helps create new neuronal pathways to improve connections between the limbic system and frontal lobes. That's important for emotional regulation and critical thinking skills. It helps to grow gray matter in the brain, specifically in the hippocampus, which helps with memory and learning. We know that these areas get impacted. We see this in the neuroquant testing for people in mold and Lyme exposure. Decreases feelings of depression, improves sleep quality, and makes people less fearful of situations that happened in the past should they happen again. This is a fairly recent study, and I think very important. People with CIRS are going to be exposed to water events again, to doctors, to people that might have been triggering in the past, to physicians. And so they need to develop tools to work with the possibility that they're going to experience challenges in the future or events that triggered them in the past in the future. Mindfulness also helps to develop kind and compassionate responses through loving kindness practices and self-compassion meditation. It supports our immune function. It helps to develop positivity towards self and improve social connections with others. It improves daily experience of positive emotions, reduces pain, anger, and psychological distress, increases vagal tone, increases gray matter in the brain connected to emotional regulation, moderates reactions to challenges such as failure, rejection, embarrassment, less negative emotion when confronted with real, imagined, or remembered negative events. Very important for CIRS folks. It helps you to be less likely to ruminate over negative events, also really important. There's more willingness to accept responsibility for negative events, and also it helps to deactivate the stress response, activate the care response, decrease cortisol, and increase heart rate variability. People are less defensive and more resilient with these types of limbic system, nervous system mindfulness practices. The typical type of meditation class was too long for a CIRS patient. I noticed that 30 to 45-minute meditations were just difficult in a CIRS body and brain. And so I began teaching 15 to 20-minute meditation practices because that's what felt like a sweet spot, balancing effort with time in my own practice. I created weekly classes that were 10 minutes of teaching, 15 to 20 minutes of meditation, and 5 to 10 minutes of reflection and questions. Participants were reporting anecdotally more awareness of their body, thoughts, and emotions in the weekly group. I began to wonder if the more formal 6-week course could be adapted for CIRS patients at the right time to help with building skills for resilience and healing. I wanted to collect data because it's so important for us to have some data around what actually works for this community. Surviving Mold values data, Dr. Shoemaker values data, and it's important because a lot of people talk about limbic system retraining, but has anybody studied those programs with CIRS patients? It's important because not all programs work for everybody. People have different preferences on the voices they like, the amount of time they can practice, and physically what they can do. Mindfulness does target the limbic system, but it actually goes much further beyond the limbic system because it helps to develop these heart qualities of kindness, compassion, and joy, and wisdom. We want our CIRS patients to be making wise choices, discerning for themselves what works and doesn't work, and problem solving on their own. It's important to collect data because we want to know the right timing of mental and emotional strategies. And how can we help patients invest their money wisely? How can we give patients some trust and confidence that we are looking out for their emotional and mental health? Here, you're going to see the 4 foundations of mindfulness. These foundations are talked about in the CIRS Summit talk that I did recently, and you can watch that to get a much more in-depth conversation around these topics. But I want to point this out because this is what I'm walking people through in a 6-week course, these 4 foundations of mindfulness. There is a shoemaker path that helps us to get to healing, and likewise, there is a path to develop a meditation and a mindfulness practice. Over on the left, it begins with mindfulness of body, where we want to develop an embodied, grounded presence, a calm nervous system. This is so important through grounding, body scan meditations, breath practice, exploring the different postures, seated, standing, laying down, walking. This helps people to get out of disassociation and live in their body again. We then learn how we're reacting to life experience and then begin to have the skill set to go into our mental and emotional states. We need to be grounded and see how we react to be able to process all of the mental and emotional pieces that come with a CIRS recovery. Then this leads into trusting life, understanding that things change, learning that we can choose wisely, and developing discernment on what works for the CIRS patient. My research question was, can a 6-week mindfulness meditation course adapted for people with CIRS who are passing their VCS be an effective modality to support the limbic and nervous system in CIRS recovery? There are different tools that I use to assess this. The first is the Warwick-Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale. This is a 14-item report scale where participants were able to self-report on positive aspects of mental health. It has good validity and reliability. Here's an example of some of the questions that they filled out prior to the course and after. I've been feeling optimistic. I've been feeling useful. I've been feeling relaxed. I've been feeling interested in other people, and so on. I also looked at the distress tolerance scale. This is a 15-item self-report measure of emotional distress tolerance. This really looks at how people can handle the difficulties of a CIRS experience. Some of the phrases here are, I can't handle feeling distressed or upset. When I feel distressed or upset, all I can think about is how bad I feel. Feeling distressed or upset is unbearable to me. And then I looked at the Kentucky Inventory of Mindfulness Skills. This is also a self-report that looks at the skills of mindfulness, observing, describing, acting with awareness, accepting without judgment. Also good validity and reliability. Here are some things that point to more specifically a mindfulness practice. I notice changes in my body, whether my breathing slows up or down. I'm good at finding the words to describe my feelings. I pay attention to whether my muscles are tensed or relaxed. When I'm doing something, I'm only focused on what I'm doing and nothing else. These are very important for a CIRS recovery. We want our CIRS patients paying attention to the doctors to be able to understand what they're supposed to be doing and to be able to explain and feel which interventions are working and not working. 8 participants diagnosed with CIRS, all passing their VCS, participated in a group-based virtual mindfulness meditation intervention for 6 weeks. I decided to reduce the time 60 minutes and held class once a week. Each session included 20 minutes of guided mindfulness meditation, as well as teachings and interactive community questions and reflections. Participants were asked to listen to a 10-minute guided mindfulness meditation 2 to 3 times weekly outside of class and were sent reminders. 7 of the 8 participants completed the intervention and follow-up survey. So there was one participant where we decided, due to the presence of trauma or intense feelings of nervous system dysregulation when meditating, that they should be working with a trauma specialist at this time. For folks that may have past developmental trauma or have experienced trauma, it's not that you can't meditate, but you want to work with what's coming up. And at that time, the trauma was louder and more important to work with. 4 of the participants at baseline were brand new to meditation, and 4 had not meditated more than a week in the month prior to the intervention. And at follow-up, participants reported meditating on average 11 minutes outside of class. So combined in class with meditations, participants practice at least 30 minutes weekly. So that is not a big ask. And I love that because people were showing that they were spreading out meditating across the week. Even 30 minutes a week was able to help shift the experience of well-being and handling distress and the mindfulness skills. Some of the programs that are out there ask for a bigger time commitment, and that can be very difficult for a variety of reasons for CIRS patients, and we don't want to set them up for failure. 7 of 8 participants were at step 3 of the Shoemaker protocol or higher, with 1 participant at step 2 because they did not have mark-ons to treat. Here is a picture of the results for the Warwick-Enberg Mental Wellbeing Scale. 33% increase from average pre-score to average post-score for reported feelings of well-being. And you can see here all of the different areas that there was self-reported improvement. I've been feeling good about myself. I've been thinking clearly. I've been feeling cheerful. I've been feeling loved. I've been dealing with problems well. All very important for a CIRS patient. The distress tolerance scale showed a 44% increase from pre-score to post-score in reported ability to tolerate distress. Here again, you can see there was a self-reported improvement on feelings of distress. My feelings of distress or being upset are not acceptable. They felt that they could accept them more. There's nothing worse than feeling distressed or upset. They realized that they were able to be with their distress. And the Kentucky Inventory of Mindfulness skills showed people were able to develop the observation of their experience, to describe their emotions and body experience, to be able to act more intentionally with awareness, and to be more accepting and less judging of what was happening. In summary, the results suggest that participants with CIRS who have passed the VCS participating in regular mindfulness meditation of at least 30 minutes per week can improve levels of well-being and improve tolerance of distress, and also improve their mindfulness skills. This supports CIRS patients in multiple areas of recovery. And participants liked the most about the course that it increased their awareness of thoughts and feelings, and that they were practicing in community. There was accountability to help them keep going. Some testimonials: practicing mindfulness has changed the way I look at things in life. It has helped me realize that even when things are very wrong, I can be more intentional with my thoughts, feelings, and approach. I can stop, take some time, and make decisions. Knowing I have tools to improve my state when I'm dysregulated is a game changer for me. The mindful meditation course allowed me to experience another level of healing. After the outstanding guided meditations, I felt less tense, less fatigue, more focus, more self-compassion, and more optimism. There is an incredible peace that can be found by simply watching your breath. Finding peace in a CIRS recovery is a huge gift. With all the expenses we experienced in our CIRS journey, this course was affordable and worthwhile. In the future, considerations for expanding on my data collection would be to match pre and post surveys by participant, to increase the number of participants to 30, and to have a control group. Our next course starts January 19th, 2025, with early and late sessions, so a wide variety of time zones can participate. And then there'll be another session again in the summer, fall of 2025. And there's the link to sign up for the class. So to summarize, the benefits of mindfulness, meditations can meet people's nervous systems and individual physical and emotional needs. So there's lots of choices and ways to practice and areas to target. You're able to lay down, stand, walk, or even sit for practice. You're able to do body practices, thought practices, emotions or heart practices, and you can spread out the time across the week. 30 minutes a week is a good starting point. It's very reasonable. Mindfulness of thoughts practice are similar to traditional limbic training programs, where when you see a negative thought and instead choose presence, self-compassion and offer encouraging language scripts. So this is very similar to how some of the limbic system programs are set up, where you have to see your limiting thoughts and then say a new script. So mindfulness of thoughts practice is very much that way. Mindfulness meditation practices preventing spiritual bypassing, which is really a common cultural term that points to this experience of choosing positivity when you're actually feeling sadness, grief, or anger. Mindfulness meditation prevents this and encourages people to feel and process, because when you choose positivity, when you're actually feeling sad, depressed, mad, angry, it creates confusion in your nervous system. So we need to feel what we're feeling to be able to move through to more positive states. Mindfulness really works well in relationship with trauma work, as I pointed to earlier, and psychology practice. So anybody that's doing counseling can use mindfulness practice as a way to see their limiting thoughts or challenges, and then they can take that to their counselor or their psychiatrist or psychologist and be able to talk these things through. Mindfulness meditation is more than just mind training, which is why I don't advertise it as a limbic retraining program, but it very much targets the limbic system. It also has these tools for self-compassion and development of wisdom, as I pointed to earlier. Mindfulness supports CIRS patients in many ways. For those who are feeling disassociated, out of their body, floating above their body, or disconnected from the world, it helps to ground them. For those who are unsure when to stop, pause, or pull back on physical activity, that push crash phenomena, it helps you to be more aware of when your body needs a break. It helps in treatment feedback. So people, if they're unsure if a treatment is working or how to describe the body sensations related to exposure or medicine or supplement use, mindfulness practice helps to develop the language because people are paying attention to their body relationship and experience. For those who are overwhelmed by choices and actions, deciding where to live or what to do for support, mindfulness helps things to calm down to make clear decisions. For those with recurring cyclical thought patterns, that busy thinking mind that prevents getting through the day and making decisions, mindfulness supports the ability to stay present and to work with those patterns. Mindfulness helps with feeling and processing emotions. If you're unsure how to name or process the feelings of anger, frustration, sadness, and grief, there are practices for that. And it helps with anxiety. Prior to interactions and events like doctor's appointments, blood draws, and home inspections, mindfulness meditation is very supportive. Here is the bibliography. Lastly, I'd like to review what the course includes. This next round of the Mindfully Navigating CIRS Recovery Intro to Meditation 6-week course starts January 19th and ends February 23rd, 2025. The cost is $120 per person, which is $20 a class, and that also includes a free month in the practice portal CIRS Premier membership so that you can have the ability to meet with a community and meditate after the course ends. This 6-week course is appropriate for those with CIRS on the shoemaker path, for those who are new to meditation, or for experienced meditators looking to begin again with community. The course is for those who are on step 3 of the protocol, out of exposure, on binders, passing VCS, treating MARCONs, or beyond, who feel like they can commit to 6 weeks of attendance and are willing to complete pre- and post-research studies. Each 1-hour session will provide guidance on different elements of mindfulness meditation. You will learn a variety of practices and practical ways to integrate this into a CIRS recovery. We will cultivate self-awareness, learn to rest in the body, work with repetitive thinking, identify that judgmental inner critic, safely feel emotions, and support yourself with kindness and compassion. We're developing a training in meditation, managing stress, recognizing and releasing unhelpful thoughts and mind states, exploring and working with a range of emotional experience, and cultivating the heart practices. Each class includes a guided meditation, teaching on the topic of the day, time for questions, time for interaction with other students, activities and support for home practice, access to pre-recorded meditations, and halfway through the course, you'll have a private 15-minute meeting with me, the teacher. There are 2 sessions for this particular course. It will run on Sundays. There's an early session, which is 9 a.m. Pacific, and then there's a late session, which is 4 p.m. Pacific time. This accommodates a variety of time zones, including the UK. If you have any questions and you want to talk to me about if you're a good candidate for the course, you can contact me here through this button. I hope to see you at the next course.